Some came mainly to see the cars. They came to quarter-mile dirt ovals, high-banked superspeedways, road courses, and drag strips, drawn by the deafening kaleidoscope of men and machines in competition at speed. Automobile racing is noise and color and speed and excitement. It is engineering, tuning and preparation, driving and pit crew. Automobile racing is 15,000 parts that must endure the most brutal punishment ever found for proving technology. In 1968, the cars in front at most major American races bore the black and red ghost of a Group 6 prototype, symbol of Autolite Ford parts. A team of dedicated professionals brought these cars to the starting line. Their job was to begin with the machine and explore the outer limits of its capability, beyond which there lies no margin for error. To these men, automobile racing was winning. "64 cars in 4 categories come from all over the world for the 24 hours of Daytona. One-of-a-kind prototypes, limited production grand touring cars, mass-produced sports cars, and sporty sedans. 4 races in one. With the big Ford, Ferrari, and Chaparral prototypes sidelined by a rules change, many fans expect to find the hottest competition among the sedan class, where Mustang and Camaro face each other for championship points. The Camaro effort is led by Mark Donohue in number 6. Jerry Titus is Mustang's man to beat in the number 1 car. Donohue takes an early lead over the sedan cars. Titus is second. They hold the 1-2 positions through the early laps, then change places in late afternoon. Up front, a pair of independently entered Ford GT40s set the pace for prototypes, with a quartet of long-tailed Porsche 907s snapping at their heels.
You drive 2,400 miles at an average speed of 100 miles an hour. You hit the brakes 3,000 times, shift gears 7,500 times, and maintain an average engine speed of 6,000 revolutions per minute. The race starts at 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon and finishes at 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon. And if you're still around when they drop the checkered flag, you'll know what the 24 hours of Daytona is like.
By the 10th hour, Titus has a 5-lap lead over the second-place Donohue. Fewer than half the starters are still running at dawn. Donohue is 64 laps behind the leading Mustang. Co-driver Ronnie Bucknam relieves Titus. Only the Porsche prototypes are in front of their car as the marathon ends. Vic Elford and Jochen Neerpasch win overall for Porsche. First sedan is the number 1 Mustang, an incredible 4th overall. The win is good for 9 championship points, earned the hard way by Jerry Titus and Ronnie Bucknam, who know what the 24 hours of Daytona is like. The high whine of the sports cars is replaced 3 weeks later at Daytona by the angry roar of Grand National stock cars.
It was a Mercury Cyclone and has this new teardrop roof on it, which has contributed a great deal to the high jump in speeds that we ran at Daytona. It's powered by a 427 cubic inch engine, and I think it has a personality and probably a mind of its own. It's never talked back yet, but it has sometimes let me know that it understood what I was saying. A lot of times when I call it, it comes.
The man's name is Cale Yarborough. In February 1968, an understanding with his number 21 Mercury Cyclone led to the fastest lap time in the history of auto racing, 189.2 miles an hour. 2 weeks later, he put that car and that speed on the inside front row for a share of $200,000 in the world's richest, fastest stock car race. Straightaway speeds of 205 miles an hour were to break 28 of 50 starting cars. And the debris from those cars was to bring a yellow caution flag out for almost a third of the race. For this is the big one, the one to win. This is the Daytona 500. Cale held his pole position through the first 14 laps. Then an unscheduled pit stop gave the lead to David Pearson in the number 17 Ford. Richard Petty's number 43 Plymouth is in second. On the 24th lap, James Hilton's tire lets go. It brings out the first of 11 caution flags. At the halfway mark, Cale has 2 seconds over second-place Mario Andretti in the number 11 Mercury. Then trouble on turn 4. Andretti and Buddy Baker collide. John Sears cannot avoid the mix-up. No one is hurt, but all 3 are out of the race. "120 laps into the 200-lap race, and 20 of 50 cars have been eliminated from competition."
We figured it up, and we're pulling close to 2 Gs in the turns. So this makes your arms feel like they weigh about 100 pounds each, and your head feels like it weighs about 200 pounds.
The turns at Daytona have a 31% bank, which produces a pull of more than twice the force of gravity. This means, in effect, that the race car is pressing down on its suspension with about 4 tons of sprung weight. With speeds of 200 miles an hour, you don't need any suspension failures. So you become very selective about things like shock absorbers and springs.
With more than $47,000 at stake for the winner, the lead changes 22 times among 9 drivers. 25 laps to go, and pit stops have dropped Cale Yarborough to 4th place. Now he begins his charge. 16 laps remain, and he is pushing for second. The number 26 Mercury, driven by Leroy Yarborough, is in front by 5 seconds. With 10 laps to go, Cale is 3 seconds back. 4 laps remain. Cale is flat out to pass, but traffic ahead forces him back. This time, the high bank is clear, and they are door to door at 200 miles an hour. This is what 94,000 fans paid to see, and they love it. Cale Yarborough wins stock car racing's richest prize. After 3 hours, 23 minutes and 44 seconds, his margin of victory is 1 second. The long turns at Atlanta International Raceway have the effect upon rubber that sandpaper has on soft pine. The tire companies come here expecting 16 tire changes per car. With 44 cars starting the Atlanta 500, they figure to do a land office business. Tire failure can provide an unexpected, abrupt change of pace. David Pearson started on the outside front row for this race. On lap 54, he was running with the leaders. Pearson is unhurt, but the car will need work. Up front, Cale and Leroy are at it again. Leroy had the pole with a record 155.7 miles an hour. For 90 laps, he also had the lead. At the halfway mark, only 24 of 44 starting cars remain in the field. 4 have blown engines, 3 have overheated. Several had handling problems, and the rest have broken axles, drive shafts, or suspension. A typical attrition rate for a typical automobile race. If you don't hold together, you can't finish. And if you can't finish, you can't win. Among those watching the race from behind the pit wall are many for whom racing is more than just a sport.
Racing allows a engineer, particularly, the opportunity to try something new, try something different, to stress a part a little bit higher, and keep out of a field which I call design defense. If a man designs something, he thinks it's pretty good because he designed it, and he has a tendency to run a program that proves how good it is rather than how bad it is. If he's assigned against competition, you know Monday morning if he's a better engineer or not.
Between the Mercuries of Cale Yarborough and Leroy Yarborough, who are not related, and the Fords of Bobby Allison and Donnie Allison, who are brothers, it took some sorting out to list the leaders. By lap 280, the first 4 cars were on the same lap, and the order was Yarborough in first place, Yarborough in second, Allison in third, and Allison in fourth. It sold a lot of programs. Only seconds separate the Mercuries of Cale and Leroy. Then Leroy draws a penalty lap for passing on the yellow. And it's Cale Yarborough with his second straight superspeedway victory. The Charger from Timmonsville, South Carolina, led 170 of 334 laps at an average speed of 125 miles an hour. His 5-second margin of victory was good for $20,000 in first-place money.
There, Darren Allison, Donnie, Buddy Baker, Tony Lyon, Cale Yarborough, Charlie Glassman, Richard Petty.
All right, fellas, pay attention to this close because we've got a few new rules for you that you haven't run here at Darlington before.
This is the Darlington, South Carolina Speedway as it looks to 22,000 stock car fans. And this is Darlington as it looks to most race mechanics. The custom sheet metal work is called the Darlington Stripe. It comes from a 140-mile-an-hour brush with the rail on turns 3 and 4. But everybody agrees it's the fastest way around in the Rebel 400. The older Leroy Yarborough earned the pole position with a record 148.859 miles an hour, beating out David Pearson by 1/10 of a second. Leroy is driving the Junior Johnson Ford this time. A last-minute consultation with an Autolite expert may help to turn that 1/10 of a second margin into victory.
A spark plug is like a dollar camera looking into the heart of a $20,000 race car. You can tell if the plug is too hot or too cold, if the mixture is too rich or too lean. You can even tell if there's too much rubber on the track. Proper ignition is important to any car, but is critical in a race car. Heavy fuel consumption can mean an extra pit stop, and that's giving away 30 seconds.
Let's have a good, clean, safe race, and good luck to all of you.
David Pearson won 3 big NASCAR races in 1961 as a rookie, then went nearly 7 years without a major victory. But at Darlington, he had a secret weapon. He was using a 396 cubic inch engine in his number 17 Ford against everyone else's 427, and he had a game plan. Pearson jumped out in front as the green flag fell, partly because that's where he likes to be. and partly to see how competitive he was, giving away 31 cubic inches to everyone else. He held the lead for 18 laps, then let a few cars go by to see if Darlington was going to create any tire problems. It did. Cale blew on between turns 1 and 2. Leroy was in on lap 33. By the 65th lap, Dodge drivers Buddy Baker in number 3 and Charlie Glatzbach in number 6 had moved into the 1-2 positions and were putting Darlington stripes all over each other in a dispute over the lead. While Baker and Glatzbach were dicing for the number 1 spot, David Pearson had quietly tiptoed through the debris into second place. Now, he was ready for a piece of the action. After 5 laps of bumper tag, Pearson is in front, just in time to receive the challenge of Richard Petty in the number 43 Plymouth. For 50 laps, at speeds of more than 140 miles an hour, David Pearson and Richard Petty show the fans what automobile racing is all about. Then Petty is in the pits, out of contention, as the man in the start-finish tower waves the black and white. Pearson's race average of 132.7 miles an hour set a record for the Rebel 400 and broke a 7-year superspeedway drought for one of NASCAR's best. A happy pit crew and a happy driver. There is only one place in the world where the sound of a simple imperative sentence brings 250,000 people to their feet, cheering. It was to be the year of the turbine at Indianapolis. Andy Granatelli's racers earned the first and second starting positions with the fastest qualifying times in history. As the green flag fell, his number 60 car, driven by Joe Leonard, moved easily into the lead from the pole position. Leonard's time of 171.559 miles an hour was 2 miles an hour faster than the quickest piston car. Bobby Unser in car number 3 had qualified third in his turbocharged Offenhauser, and he was one of a very few people who believed the turbines could be beat. By lap 8, he is setting the pace. He holds the lead until his first pit stop on the 57th lap. The lead passes to Lloyd Ruby in car number 25, who had started 5th. Joe Leonard is 2 seconds behind. In less than 30 seconds, Unser is back in the three-way fight for the lead. Halfway through the race, it is Unser in front again. Ruby and Leonard are pressing. The three trade the lead 8 times. Then Ruby is in the pits with a faulty ignition coil. He is out of contention. Leonard is in front now by a comfortable margin. Unser has lost all but 4th gear. Trouble on the back straight. Carl Williams is out of his car in time, and the fire crews go to work. But the track is yellow for 11 laps. Each car must hold its position. When the green flag comes out, it's going to be an 8-lap sprint to the finish. Only a miracle can work for Unser now. Joe Leonard stabs the throttle, and nothing happens. He's slowing down. He's being passed. Joe Leonard is out of the race. It's a victory for Bobby Unser and the piston engine. Unser's earnings for 3 hours, 16 minutes, and 13 seconds of work total $177,523. A broken part on Leonard's turbine, A part no larger than a ballpoint pen was his margin of victory. He is followed to the checkered flag by a tall Californian in a stock block Ford Eagle of his own design. 4 of the first 5 cars have come from his shop. All 5 carry Autolite's red and black Ghost of a Group 6 prototype. If a race driver is ever elected President of the United States, it probably will be Dan Gurney. People come to the road course at Riverside, California each year to see Gurney and Grand National stock car racing, in roughly that order. There have been 6 500-mile races here. Gurney has won 5 of them. At the start of the 1968 contest, his number 121 Ford Torino was in the pole position as the 44 screaming stock cars came off the pace lap at turn 9 and charged the green flag. Into the second lap, the driver of car number 115 is leading the pack. He won at Riverside in 1967 and is flat out for 2 straight victories. For Gurney and the others, this is the man to beat.
Well, I think that a race car is something special. I think that a race car should be built so that you can drive them hard all the way. There's places that were, you know, only certain given RPM that we're supposed to turn the engine, but if you squeak it a couple RPM over that, it usually doesn't hurt them. And of course, you don't plan to do that all day long, but if it's necessary, it doesn't seem to bother them too much.
By the first pit stops, Jones' lead over the second place Gurney is 16 seconds. But Gurney's Torino is being maintained by the legendary Wood brothers. He is in and out in 22 seconds. A 40-second pit stop for Jones drops him to second place. The duel resumes. By the 4th hour, Gurney has built a lead of 50 seconds. But a flat tire in turn 8 sends him to the pits. Shredded rubber has fouled his rear suspension. As the Wood brothers work frantically to loosen the debris, Gurney watches the lead pass to Parnelli Jones. After an agonizing minute and 25 seconds, car 121 is back in the race, 56 seconds behind the pace setter. From 3rd place, Gurney begins his charge. He picks up a second, then 2. He is 53 seconds behind, but is averaging more than 100 miles an hour over the twisting 9-turn road course. 80,000 people are counting seconds and laps. Through turns 6 and 8 and into Riverside's long straight, he's close enough to reach out and touch the lead. Then, coming out of turn 9, it is Dan Gurney in front. Gurney makes it 5 for 6 at Riverside, a record without precedent in racing. He led a Ford sweep of the first 5 positions and is one of 13 finishers in a race which started 44 cars. And to the people of Southern California, he remains auto racing's best bet for the presidency. A few hundred miles to the northeast of Riverside lies a sun-baked desert between the Spring Mountains and Death Valley in southern Nevada. Here, the National Off-Road Racing Association conducts a little outing for its membership called the Stardust 711. It is not a typical automobile race at all. The object, of course, is to finish first. But the gamblers in nearby Las Vegas will give you 8 to 1 that you won't finish at all. Off-road racing produces what the casual observer might regard as a cross-country demolition derby. "137 cars, trucks, dune buggies, and motorcycles started this race. 24 were to finish. As if choking dust and 110 degrees of heat aren't enough, the sparsely marked desert trails are littered with rocks the size of basketballs, and 3-foot holes that hammer suspension components to total destruction. The madness began at the Stardust International Raceway near Las Vegas. Entries were flagged away at 1-minute intervals. Each vehicle must have 2 drivers, dressed to withstand the rigors of day and night desert driving. But black tie is strictly optional. The first lap is 355 wilderness miles spread between 4 official checkpoints. The second lap is a repeat of the first. Anyone completing both laps in 40 hours is considered a finisher. These were among the non-finishers. Check sheets are punched at intervals along the way, but there's little time for conversation. Larry Miner and Jack Bayer in a Ford Bronco were among the first to complete lap 1. 2/3 of the racers had become spectators and were spending a chilly night on the desert. Some of the competitors had managed to struggle back to the raceway during the night. Their broken cars lined the pit lane like dusty skeletons. Broken suspensions, axles, transmissions, and wheels took a heavy toll. Dusts, knee-deep in places, clogged many air filters, and engines simply suffocated for lack of oxygen. But the Bronco team of Larry Miner and Jack Bayer are still in a hurry. They are completing the final leg of the race with a 3-hour lead over the second-place car. "27 hours and 18 minutes cross-country at speed is something less than relaxing. But the payoff, as always, is getting there first."
Getting there first has always been the name of the game. Man is by nature a competitive beast, and as such has competed on foot, horseback, chariots, wagons, trains, and happily now in cars. This is one of the ways we learn. You can take a beautiful design, have the best engineers and mechanics execute it, but if you really want to see whether it's any good or not, you put it in a race car.
The men who design, build, prepare, and drive these machines have in common the knowledge that nobody wins by mistake. For whether the margin of victory is measured in seconds or in hours, the challenge of open competition at speed leaves no margin for error.